Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Belinda Peach, and my business is Peachy, which is a business development and training consultancy service for the creative digital media sector, and I'm based in Media City. I'm also on the panel of, or the committee of Manimation, and we kind of one of the key parts of the service I deliver is supporting industry with attracting entry-level recruits. What today we want to try and do in this panel is discuss the issues that we are facing as the industry. As was mentioned this morning, there was kind of quite a few of the debates from Cat Lewis's a keynote that like 1 in 11 jobs are coming from our sector. A lot of the new trade association is going to be skills, is going to drive its agenda. So what we want to try and do today is actually discuss those issues, particularly around the skills and attracting the right kind of talent, and if that talent gets to you, is it work ready? But what would be useful is if we could just see a show of hands of who are employers and industry and who are kind of new entrants or people looking to engage. So who are employers, please? And who are new entrants? So more employers, which is great. Okay, so what I think we need to do is have an introduction from the panel. And if we could start from Stephen at the end and just sort of give a general overview of who you are, where you come from.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm a freelance animator. I'm originally from Yorkshire, but I went to uni in Stockport doing a John Moore's degree out there, and then I managed to join a agency in town called The Neighbourhood, and I was there for 4.5 years before going freelance last November. It's my first birthday on Sunday, which is nice.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. I do a wide variety of motion graphics and animation, and currently doing quite a lot with the BBC, and the last biggest thing I worked on was doing the branding for Rio 2016 Olympics for BBC Sports. That's me.
Hi, that's it. I'm Helen Brunsden. You saw me earlier on with my Animation UK hat on at the start of the day, and this is me with my creative skill set hat. I am the current animation associate. So I look after the animation sector nationwide in terms of funding and training, and I also look after the games and VFX sectors at the moment as well. So I can talk a little bit more about that because every sector has its own skills council, which some people are in the audience from our animation one actually, but I can talk a little bit more about that later.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Abby. I work for Brown Bag Films. It's my first job in the industry, and I'm currently working as a layout assistant.
Hi, I'm Praveen, and I too work at Brown Bag Films as well. I'm a toon boom renderer / compositor. It's my first job as well.
Rose Marley from Sharp Futures. I've always worked in the creative digital sector, started out in the music industry. I think what's interesting and the empathy I have with a lot of you guys is being employers of creatives and trying to manage particularly small and growing creative digital business. I don't think we've got enough time to go through the whole career history, but the most relevant and most recent is setting up the Sharp project and the Space project. So the Sharp project, a creative digital hub, and houses the lovely Brown Bag Films, and we've had people like Mighty Giant in the past, so strong animation at the Sharp project. And the Space project is predominantly television drama, but the world of VR is rapidly encroaching on the Space project. I also set up the social enterprise Sharp Futures, which supports all the talent and skills for the creative digital community in Manchester out of the Sharp project and the Space project, and I've got a lot of experience in bringing new entrants into your organisation, particularly if those are small organisations. That is a very challenging thing to do.
My name's Adrian Healy, and I work for the Manchester Growth Company, which is a collection of companies that specialise in trying to grow businesses and grow Manchester and keep investment in Manchester. Midas is one of those companies. I'm here today from a business called the Skills Company, which is one of the largest providers of apprenticeships in the Northwest. So really to talk to you around some of the changes that are coming in the way that apprenticeships are funded and some of the actual changes in actually what can be delivered through apprenticeships.
Okay, so what we want to try and do is, particularly with our kind of reasonable new entrants to the industry, is to gauge how the transition from education into employment and what was that like, and that kind of the whole work ready thing. So Steve, what was that like, your sort of transition? Did it hit you like a sledgehammer? Were you prepared? Did it all fit into place perfectly?
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock to the system. I gave up my Easter holidays to do a placement, which went quite well, and then I just kept pestering them for a job, and they ended up giving in at the end. And then from there, they saw that I worked well in the team and worked well with them, and then they then helped me raise my skills to their level type thing. So I wasn't a finished article when I went in, but they saw potential, I think. Well, I did.
So would you say the same? I mean, would you say were you ready for work at Brown Bag, or did they have to bring you up to?
Yeah, I think it was totally different than what I was before. Because it was more of like individual work and stuff at uni. So obviously it's going from like that to like a massive team, and yeah, it's something completely different from what I'd done at uni as well. But I got lots of support and training and stuff to help me.
So would you say the same for Praveen?
Yeah, pretty much the same.
Yeah. Okay. So there's sort of a potential hole here, which is what is work ready and how are the entrants to our industry work ready. So what would you say from that transition have you learned? I mean, you said, Steve, that work experience thing, which is very crucial, I think, that employers like to see. There is that. Would you say that's a big learn for somebody to know?
Yeah, I think so. Just being able to get in there, and you'd learn so much in your first few months, you know, with people that you're working with, and just that willingness to keep learning, not thinking that you're the finished article when you come out of uni and you're just going to hit the ground running. It's still hard work.
What about you, Abby? Something you should have, you wish you'd known before you'd gone into industry, something you learned?
I'm not sure like if it's particularly something that you should know before, because every job's really different and there's loads more sections and like roles than you think there is. So I think it's just about being willing to learn stuff and open-minded about like what you've learned at uni. It's just like a starting point for what you're going to learn.
Okay. Do you think at university, Praveen, they could give you a wider scope of what the job opportunities are?
Yeah, definitely.
So you are more aware of what you're able to go into.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. It's kind of, especially when as soon as I left uni, it was just the idea of just looking around for jobs and suddenly knowing like what you want to do. I knew I wanted to be an animator. I was just freelance as an animator, just practiced on my skills. I was very lucky to know a few people who knew other people who wanted a job, even though I wasn't getting paid well as much. But it was either you had a choice, either getting experience or just getting paid, and I wanted the experience more. And I had something. Fortunately, I had something as a part-time job to keep myself busy in terms of money, and it just helps really just from that.
To be have work experience of any sort.
Of any sort, really.
Yeah.
Even if it's something that's even if it may not be an animator's job, it may be something in graphic design or film or photography. Just I would say be open-minded, really.
Is there anything, Steve, you'd change with the way you came into the industry, in hindsight?
No, I don't think I would. I think I was quite lucky that I probably gelled with the people in the company quite well. But apart from that, I mean, I literally went out and knocked on doors and told people I had deliveries for them and waited until they let me in, which I probably wouldn't recommend to everyone. But it was one of those things. It works. So if you can just find a way of getting in front of someone and speaking to them and showing how passionate you are, I think that comes across a lot better than just a normal email or just sending your CV in.
About you, Abby, is there anything you would have changed? Would you still have gone to university? Is that still a route you'd have followed?
Yeah, definitely. Just because you do get a lot of skills and understanding from that, and like from college or whatever, you wouldn't get that kind of knowledge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you just got to keep applying for stuff until you find something.
Yeah.
And like, it's not always that you can't do it or that, yeah, like the job just might not be suitable for you at the time. It might be better just to keep trying, keep applying to the same places and just show you're interested and actually be interested in what they're making and stuff like that.
Yeah, yes. And so know who you're talking to and know what their product is. So, Praveen, you went to university in Staffordshire, but you ended up here. How did that kind of come about? I mean, it is the centre of the universe.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I've lived here for 15 years. I moved here in 2002, and I studied Staffordshire, and I was very persistent of getting a job around here. And
so you didn't want to go south? You wanted to stay north?
Yeah, I wanted to stay north because I felt because Media City was here, the opportunities were here,
Yeah.
and I felt like I needed to look around here. And I was here at the Manimation last year. I was volunteering at the Manchester Animation Festival, and I had a free break and I saw the conference here, and I saw that Brownback Films was doing a talk, and one of the producers, Emma Fernando, was here. So I just sort of sneaked in and managed to speak to her, told her what I was, who I was, and at the time I was freelancing for a media company that was working on a children's project. So I just told her who I was and what I was doing, and then literally within about, I think, a couple of days before Christmas, she asked me to come for an interview in Jam, and I came, and from there I got a job. So it's kind of,
right place, right time.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
you make it the right place at the
I
right
can't.
time.
Yeah, I was, because when I heard that Brown Bag was moving here to Manchester, I was very focused to sort of focus myself to see if I can. I was very persistent trying to get a job there because I just felt in a gut instinct that maybe I'm meant to be working there and there now. So.
So I think that's an interesting insight into how people have moved into the industry and stayed in the industry, and it seems to be that kind of that push, dedication, sort of old-fashioned hard work, persistence is still the key. So in terms of how the industry has supported entry-level talent, maybe we could ask Rose in terms of what obviously Sharp Futures has done some fab things around social inclusion. So what have we done already? I mean, obviously animation is a big part of it, but it's the whole of the sector of which your products are wide-reaching.
Yeah, I won't take up too much time talking about the specifics of some of the programmes Sharp Futures works with creative skill set on, but it's all about, you touched on it earlier, it's all about work experience. What we did at Sharp Futures, we recognised that apprenticeships in particular are quite difficult for small business to take on because I think the lady from Erica before commented on it. She said, we actually do productions that lose money to keep people in jobs, and when you take people on you find this huge sense of responsibility for all these people, and it becomes really stressful as an actual small business owner that you need to get the work in to keep the people. And what classically happens, if you're actually quite hardcore and go, there's no work, I've got to let everybody go, you can guarantee that a couple of weeks later the work's back in and you've lost all the people. So Sharp Futures created something called Sharp Futures Pod, People on Demand, which allows you to kind of try before you buy. So we've got apprentices, we've got graduates, and you can hire them off us for £10 or £11 an hour. I mean, we literally do things because we're across everything, it's not just animation. So running, for example, you have people like literally doing things like shifting boxes for wardrobe, and then you have other people, editing videos that end up on Channel 4. And the reality of that, in the case of Brown Bag Films, they took on one of our apprentices as a pod member who was there for about 3 or 4 weeks, and they decided not to take him on. So that was a lot of heartache and pain saved on behalf of everybody, actually. Not only did he did a good job, everything was fine, but it wasn't an environment for him, and it culturally didn't fit. So we've created that, and I guess the one thing I wanted to say, what's more important, and I'd love people to find me at the end, is what we now want to do this next year in animation. This conversation about skills has been going on for about 20 years. It got heightened again with the arrival of BBC at Media City. And everybody, this is the problem with creative digital, because we are all micro and small businesses. You're so busy here dealing with the right now, and that we're not strategic. We don't have as many huge organisations to think about that skills development for the next 3 to 5 years. So we're interested in developing talent pipeline for the long term, and we're absolutely keen to find employers who want to kind of work with other employers to develop what are those standards, what is it we're looking for, using machine engineering to talent spot people for over a long term, because that's what you can't do in a small business. You can't kind of look at that. We've got to tackle it and not keep talking about it. So that's what I'm really keen to say. Apprenticeships as well, in terms of what support there's been for the industry, is hugely successful in our sector, in respect of, you know, it's probably the right, you know, one of the right forms of learning to work on the job. But as I mentioned, it's very difficult for those small businesses necessarily to take them on. And then the other massive opportunity we've got in Manchester is the Devolve Power, you know, and the adult skills agenda is within that. So there is an opportunity, you know, right now in Greater Manchester, if you're an employer who does have a little bit of time to kind of spend some time thinking strategically about how we make sure that all those, when your business grows, you can grow with it, and to manage the expectations of people who are looking for a job and not necessarily a short-term contract. There's this host of issues. So I think we've done quite a lot, but I think there's so much more we can do, and now is the time to be doing it. Yeah.
I think the talking is over, isn't it? It's time for doing, and I think you and I rose aboard talking about it. Really, we're boring ourselves to death. Helen, could you pick up on the apprenticeship side and sort of where the frameworks and the actual qualifications, because that's obviously crucial, that if you are going to go down the apprenticeship route, you need to kind of know what the training would be.
Yeah, so it's fair to say that as soon as it was announced that the apprenticeship levy was going to kick in April next year, with regards to animation sector, when you go to the standards cupboard, it is empty, and it is still currently empty. So at Creative Skills Set, we were asking the Skills Council for Animation to see if we could invest some of the voluntary production levy that we run on animation at Skills Set, if we could ring fence some money to develop standards, because government doesn't give any money to develop standards. It's paid for by industry, and they cost every standard costs tens of thousands of pounds. So that's where we're at, is that I took it to council, and we recognise the skills flashes that are needed, and they're endless, you know, in terms of what we do need for the industry. But we narrowed it down to 3, and we put the expression of interest on the 3 standards, which I'll explain in a minute, the end of September, and they're currently out for public consultation. And so it's one storyboard artist, level 7, and I don't know how many people are familiar with the levels. That's basically master's level and above. In some sectors that might be PhD level, I know. And then we have 2 animator standards, one level 4, 5 and 1 7. And what I did, so for behind every standard you have to have an employers working group. So we managed to recruit about 13 employers from around the country, and Brown Bag sit on that, and so does Studio Liddell locally. And where we're at is that's what we're now doing, is building those 2-page standards for submission. But what I did for the employers group, I also brought, for an animator, we also know that the games industry and VFX use an animator. So we asked them, 2 companies, Frame Store, who are very successful with apprenticeships, as we know, and they've been trailblazing those. And we asked Ubisoft on the games side to sit on the workers group, because again, and you know what, everything we say today might be changing next week with the autumn statement. So it's really difficult to say. Yeah, and there's election, but it is worth saying that everything changes, and as you've heard from the beginning of today, you know, the CIC and the Creative Industry Federation are all lobbying. And we've got some changes, so I don't know whether Adrian or myself are going to talk about what the levy means and the digital vouchers. Yeah. But can I just say, there's some, and from government level, just on the standards front, there are so many standards that maybe some people from the animation world don't know they can currently draw down. So when I say the cupboard is bare, it is bare for animator type standards, but there are standards like the junior content producer that film and television developed, and I looked through it because we lack producers, as we know, in animation industry, and that is easily transferable to be a standard that an animation company can draw down from.
And then in apprenticeships, there's obviously as well the generic business development type of apprenticeships, which are public relations, communications, business admin, all that help within, because you're a generic business in any sense.
Creative digital media, if you are looking at, got an animation strand in it, so you can that's if you're going for an apprenticeship, that's the one that we use for animation.
Yeah. So the levy, Adrian, could you help unravel that, which is coming next year? It's definitely happening. So if you could help us.
Yeah, I mean it is definitely happening. It's not going to go away, unfortunately. The last update was last month, and they are pushing on with it. So they're saying from 6th of April next year, and it affects every single business, no matter what size the business is. So if it's a business that has a pay bill of more than £3 million, they will get taxed 0.5% of anything over that £3 million, and they can only spend that on apprenticeships. If they don't spend it, they've got 2 years to spend it, and if they don't spend it, it goes back into the government purse and gets spent on something that isn't training, I would think. Small to medium SME businesses that have more than 50 employers will have to start contributing towards the cost of apprenticeships. The government will finance 90% of the cost, and the employer will finance the further 10%. Okay, so for the first time, really, you may have to start looking, if you want to engage with apprenticeships, actually paying something towards that, because the trend historically has been that apprenticeships would be potentially free of charge for you. If you're a business that has less than 50 employees and you want to engage a 16 to 18-year-old in an apprenticeship, you won't need to pay anything. So the government has recognised that there is still a need to engage young people on apprenticeships and recruit. That usually is a recruitment piece. To build on what's already been said, apprenticeships are traditionally, when you say that to people, they think, well, the low-level stuff, and it's potentially, construction, plumbing, all the traditional sort of craft stuff, when actually these standards that are being introduced now go across the piece. They really do, and they go up to, I was talking to MMU, Manchester Metropolitan University, they're developing a level 8 apprenticeship, which is almost like a doctorate. So it's that's what they're saying is in line in the future, is that basically the Sainsbury report has said that young people that are leaving education will be able to pick two routes. And this is their vision. They go down an traditionally academic route, or they go down a vocational route, which involves sort of traineeships, apprenticeships, and in-work learning. So I think that the work experience thing is really hitting home around how that is so valuable, because you can get people that come with qualifications but actually don't know what it's like to work in your business or haven't worked in it, and you invest quite a bit of money in employing that person, and then if you find they're not right for you, you have to go back to the drawing board. So I think the levy is designed, the government's got the target, haven't they, 3 million apprenticeships by 2020, and I don't think that's going to go away either. I don't think they're going to hit that, but they're not going to be too far off it. But yeah, apprenticeships is not going to go away. It's something that is a key target for government. So yeah.
Can we just ask everybody here, is anyone taking on an apprentice or thinking of taking on an apprentice in animation?
We are eventually.
Eventually,
Yeah,
right, okay.
next year, next year.
The other thing is, with these new standards being particularly high, they are also available for your existing personnel.
And the criteria actually changes. So whereas at the moment, if you had a degree, you wouldn't be able to access apprenticeship funding. There's only one framework you can do that in, and that's HR. That's an HR qualification. But come the levy, it won't matter what they call prior attainments. If you've got a degree, or you've got graduates that you've employed that have degrees, but you want to upskill them in another part of your business, they will be able to access apprenticeships. Whereas traditionally, at this point in time, they couldn't. So there's a big change, and there's an understanding that actually a lot of skill sets are moving around businesses. So it's how you upskill those people using government funding to do it.
Those organisations that are looking at apprenticeships, particularly in the future, and I know Creative Skills Set are lobbying the government, it's not going to happen in the first year of apprenticeships, but what the request is from Creative Digital, that is huge employers that will be subject to the levy. So particularly in the Northwest, you're looking at the likes of BBC and ITV, for example. It actually costs money to even draw down your levy, so there's a strong chance that they won't be using all that, even when they're accessing, you know, as much as they need for their business, that they might still have apprenticeship money left in their pot. And what both of those businesses are keen to do is be able to gift that to people in their supply chain. So just keep your eye on that one, because where this 90% gap is, it might be where the difference is made up.
And they're allowed to gift up to 10% of their current levy fund at the moment, and as you've just said, that can be quite a bit of money, especially when you look at the BBC and people like that. So yeah, at the moment it's 10%, but that is under consultation that could actually go up. So yeah, there might be some really large organisations that are actually looking to support you guys because you're in the same sector.
And also, I would say, picking up on what we were saying about is majority of freelance basis, our industry. So that doesn't work. So what, you know, there's little detail that everybody's lobbying for, which is that some of the apprenticeships are 18 to 24 months. And of course, as a business or a production or a company, they can't guarantee they can take somebody on for that long. So the lobbying is taking place that maybe 3 companies could join for 6 months. You see, so they sort of 3 companies share an apprentice, and that might
I think
work.
what there is there's definitely a will to make it work, because I think to this point it's been a bit of a dog's breakfast in terms of delivering it and sorting it out. So I think there's a real commitment to ensure that those people that are in employment, whether they're graduates or not, can be continually skilled through apprenticeships. And you also consider it very strongly alongside your graduate recruitment as a process, which I think our sector to this point doesn't particularly do.
One of the beauties of sort of growing your own, really, and we've seen this in it's a completely different industry, but in accountancy, is that traditionally that's been a graduate recruitment process, but since university fees and things have been introduced, you know, graduates are potentially joining you with quite a bit of debt, whereas the apprenticeship route doesn't generate debt. And you can get them at a very you can get them, and it tends to build, I probably shouldn't say this in the front, but it tends to build a bit of loyalty as well, because they've seen that across the accountancy sector, that, you know, you've started with that employer, you've gained your training and your work experience through that employer, and there's actually a bit of loyalty to stay with that employer instead of sort of going off to London and getting paid a lot more and stuff like that.
Paying out a lot more.
And paying out more, I should say that, of course. Yeah.
So just on the other sort of flip side of it, I think we've got some excellent, obviously, new recruits, or you know, to our industry. But some of the complaints from employers, I think, have been the issue about people coming into not being work ready, not having the right something. So what are we planning to do? It's Adrian, for example, locally, to make sure that schools, teachers, parents are really looking at this being not an option of like the poor relation on the apprenticeship side, because I think we're kind of all right with the graduates. Our courses are very well attended and very well recognised, but there's another route in.
Yeah, I think we currently run the National Careers Service in this area, and we do a lot of work with schools. So what we're trying to do is engage with employers of all sizes in all sectors to actually get involved in that process with us, and, you know, visit local schools and talk to schools about your industry, and you know, really get that through to young people about what it is out there, because I think that this sector potentially is one of the sectors where that's not been done enough, and you know, we're really trying to build a programme for that, and we've got some funding to actually do that as well. But yeah, the more interest we can generate at a young age, the more likelihood is people will come into your industry when they're making those decisions.
Rose, you've done some down at the Sharp, haven't you?
I've just noticed actually, Matt Hancock, who's our new Minister for Digital, is having a conversation on Twitter with Google about setting a digital skills standard across the curriculum, which I think would be phenomenal to do, and I think Manchester should actually pilot it. We've got devolved skills, we can do this. And when I'm talking digital skills, there's some like basic things, and I have to be careful not to sound too exasperated, but the amount of, whether it's graduates or apprenticeships, that just do not use email, have never used email, don't even know what the reply to all buttons, I can see nods and like smiles, and it's like, it's so frustrating, you know, simple stuff, not knowing the difference between a Mac operating system and a PC. There's some stuff that we don't teach in our schools, and when you spend time with teachers, although very willing, the truth is they are not, they're not accredited things that they need to do, they're not measured on it, so it's down to the passion of those individual teachers to build in things like soft skills and social skills as well as the digital skills, and they've already got quite a lot to do. So this is what I'm talking about. I really do think we've got an opportunity in Manchester to set some of those standards. If we all know that all young people coming out of any form of education in Manchester have just got this basic level, we will be ahead and above, you know, a lot of other places in the UK straight off with just simply putting that in place. So, you know, there are also, you know, you've just touched on it there, saying like it's very different to university and what can universities do differently. And I think that, you know, that's a really huge one as well. Just, you've touched on it, work experience. Just go and work in Costa Coffee if you can't get anything else, because the social skills you develop, and as employers, you know, it's bad enough coming to an interview if they've not researched who you're speaking to and you've not got a show reel. But if you've got no work experience, like no work experience, you know, at our place you don't, you know, even get the interviews half the time. You've got to show that you can have some level of job and roles. So again, you know, I'm really keen to find people in the animation community who want to kind of help support. What are those base level of skills that we just expect people to know? So that we can just, everybody wants to achieve the same thing in Manchester. We're just all going about it all over the place, and we just need to kind of corral everybody into the same sort of set of missions. And unless anyone strongly disagrees with me, I really believe that we need a basic level of digital skills coming out of education.
Yeah, and also of education and that network, students, teachers, and parents understanding what the sector wants and what the jobs are. So that young person that's looking at the options of, do I want to go, or am I able to go, which is the other key thing here. Am I able to go into higher education? Because we haven't got that sort of resource. We need to be able to offer them what our industry is looking for. So we're just sort of coming towards an end. So are there any questions? Yes.
Just throwing my 10 pence in, so this is something that's very close to my heart, having crewed up Brown Bag 2D over the last year and a half. So guys up there work for me, and I interviewed both of them, and they're both fabulous. But, you know, one of the reasons that both these guys are working with us is the fact that they put the word animation on their CV. And isn't that crazy? But the amount of CVs I received that don't even say the word animation. And I think that in some of the entry-level positions within a studio, you're under no illusion that people are not going to have work experience. So actually what you want is a love for the craft, because that's what we all do and that's what we all love. So if you haven't even written the word on there, then you wouldn't have got an interview. So it's stuff like that when I'm part of Inspiring the Future, and I go into schools and talk to kids about being who you want to be, and specialise in talking to girls and women. And that's one of the things I always say to them is, you know, tailor your CV to what you're looking for. And there's some really basic stuff that kids just don't know. And I think that one of the main things is a lot of people that teach the courses to these kids don't have the industry knowledge, and that's a huge problem. And I don't have a degree. I went to the BBC when I was 18, and I've worked all over the place and worked my way up, and I can't now as a woman go and apply for a job as a lecturer in an animation college because I don't have a degree, and that's crazy. So yeah, my way of sort of tackling that as an individual is going in and, you know, as part of Inspiring the Future and talking to people about being more work ready. But I think there's a more fundamental issue with the industry that we work in, the type of people who, there's lots of people who set up studios who didn't go to university and actually they're amazing and people could learn lots from them. So I think there's more of a issue with that from my perspective anyway.
I think that's the point about this whole social inclusion thing. We are a sector that can really drive that we can really recruit from non-white middle class, where people are being subsidised to take them through their education. We can bring them in and we can really work with them and drive them through the industry.
I think one of the things, the main thing that gets people into the industry is enthusiasm. In terms of, I was one of the people that got doorstepped by Steve. It was borderline harassment, I think. But like Praveen saying that he was at Manimation last year and put himself in front of Brown Bag. I know that Nick, who was here I was having a drink with Nick last year when he was harassing Brown Bag as well, and he's got a job out of them. But it's getting yourself there in front of it. And it's what I say at Motion North as well. It's, if you put yourself into the situations, it's awkward. And you learn skills by being at them. And it's difficult networking, but any graduates or anyone who's trying to get into the industry who's here is already, one step along.
I think the idea is really just persevere, really, that's the truth. That's what I've learned from college and from university, really. And I learned that from myself, because at a young age I just knew I wanted to be in the industry. I wanted to work in an animation studio, regardless of what the job was, whether it was a studio runner or working at the low end, just working way up to the top. I was very insistent that I wanted to work there. And I think sometimes you got to do anything necessary just to get where you want to be. And another thing is just, remember my uncle Paddy once said this to me. It's pretty much 3 words really before I went to university, which is dedication, determination, and practice. Determine yourself to have a goal, whether it's in anything, whether it's in the industry or outside the industry. Dedicate yourself to it, really. Put the work hard and effort, and just keep practicing your skills. That's how I'm here, really. It's kind of helped me get here, and I still practice as well, even if it's not just in animation, but it's outside of things as well, like photography or filming. Yeah.
Just to add to that, I was speaking to some graduates last week, and my main thing to say to them was, no matter what you do, is having confidence in it, because whenever we left uni, we weren't used to going and doing interviews and writing CVs or doing show reels or whatever. But be confident in what you know, and because people will employ you for what you know and what you're willing to continue learning with. So just going in and having that confidence and then speaking to them as a human as opposed to this big scary monster, then yeah.
So that's it. Thank you so much.